Hey guys, so a couple of months ago I went to Super Nintendo World at Universal Studios Hollywood, and I've got to say, I've had a blast there. It felt like a dream came true, from passing through into the warp pipe and finally entering into Peach's castle, then taking the door straight out and walking into Super Nintendo World and hearing the iconic Super Mario Bros. Theme. It really felt amazing, and I was blown away by it. Before I was the Sonic fan I am today, I've always been a Super Mario Bros. Fan. From my very first console being the Nintendo DS and then the Wii. And I nearly cried seeing my childhood brought to life. Being able to see the world that I had played in those games for pretty much my entire childhood. Just there. The attention to detail in this world was amazing. Everything looked like it had come from the games. Literally everything. The restaurant looked amazing. It had all of the references to the power-ups. There was pipes everywhere. With the latest addition to Super Nintendo World, that being the Donkey Kong Country area, now opening in the newly opened Epic Universe and Universal Studios Japan, of course based on the Donkey Kong Country games, it looks amazing. From the rides, or to the ride, to the level of detail, to, of course, you can meet Donkey Kong. It just looks awesome. I mean, sure, it's upsetting that Tiki Tong is there, as there is a much more better villain that, should have appeared, because more important, makes much more of a better impact, and recently showed up in a fighting game. But anyway, nonetheless, there's another IP that could appear in Super Nintendo World. That's right, the Luigi's Mansion series, which consists of 5 games. The original GameCube released in 2001. Then you have the 2013 Dark Moon, which was released for the 3DS, as well as a remake of the first game for the 3DS. Finally, in 2017, you had the third game in the series, and then finally a HD port of Luigi's Mansion 2. And then of course they also did an arcade game, but I don't know if that counts or not. In this video, I'm going to be explaining my idea for a potential Luigi's Mansion themed attraction and land in Super Nintendo World, going over all the little details. So, enjoy! The setting of the land is the most important part. For Super Nintendo World, we had the Mushroom Kingdom. Then for the Donkey Kong Country area, we had DK Island, which is where it's set in the games. However, for Luigi's Mansion, it's a bit trickier, as there's not really a distinct location in all of the games. It's always taking place in a spooky forest. But I've got a bit of an idea of how to get around this. The setting for the place would be Evershade Valley from Luigi's Mansion 2 Dark Moon. And so I've decided to make a bit of a layout of how the area would look. As you can see right here, there are 6 little areas, including the ride, as well as some stands. So I'm going to go over all of them right now. So the first we have is Chef Chauffeur's Spooky Treats. It's a food stand which features the character from Luigi's Mansion 3, serving guests with some spooky treats. And I think it would be quite cool. I don't know what they'd serve, but it sounds cool. Then you would have Professor Egad's laboratory / gift shop, and it would be a themed gift shop based around Egad's lab. There would be screens everywhere, you could get exclusive merchandise, and you could also see Egad working on something, and you could see the ghosts running the store. Then there would be a statue of Egad outside where you can interact with it, and you can see some ghosts interacting with the statue. And then here would be the character meet and greet with Polterpup, which he would be an animatronic, by the way. Similar to the animatronic Toothless in Isles of Berk at Epic Universe, as I think that would work well with Polterpup. And then we would have the Ghost Gallery. Now this would be kind of something that would be a reference for long-time fans, as it would show all of the portrait ghosts from the first game, as well as the third game. The reason why I skipped Luigi's Mansion 2 is because Luigi's Mansion 2 does not have any portrait ghosts. It instead just goes for the regular ghost designs. But it would be a nice little thing to include. Okay, so it's time to talk about the interactive side. The big element of Super Nintendo World is all of the interactive stuff. So you'll be able to use the bands as usual, and you would scan some of the areas, and you would be able to capture the ghosts, which would be big parts in interacting with props. But here's the big thing. You would especially need to scan the areas if you want to capture all 50 boos, which is a big thing in the games, capturing all the boos. And they're everywhere, and if you manage to capture them all, then a special door will open up in the art gallery, and you can go down to it, and you can fight Boolossus, one of the biggest bosses from one of the bosses who keeps on appearing and who's appeared in all 3 Luigi's Mansion games, actually. And I think this would be a nice little Easter egg for long-time fans. So it's time we tackle the ride, Luigi's Mansion Ghostly Mayhem. The ride would take place in the mansion, and you would queue up in the house, and you would be able to see some of the portrait ghosts. And some of the screens would show the ghosts messing around with Egad's gadgets in some wacky kind of shenanigans ensue. And we would see, of course, photos referencing Mario, Luigi, some of the adventures that they went on. And then the pre-show would begin. It would open up with Egad greeting the guests and explaining what Evershade Valley is, and his ghostly portrait collection. But then he talks about King Boo, and he mentions on how dangerous he is. Just then, out of nowhere, King Boo appears, and he frees all of the ghosts, who then mess up the security system, leaving Egad trapped inside his lab. He then realizes he has no other sort of option. King Boo then threatens, telling him that he's not going to go anywhere and that he will now rule the world. With Egad stuck in there, he will use the power of the gem to take over the world with an army of ghosts. Just then, Professor Egad looks around trying to see if he can find a way out, but again trapped in his lab. He then decides to call the only person who can help him, that being Luigi. And while he uses a pixelator to get him here, Egad tells Luigi what's going on. And then the guests, here's what would happen. The guests would join Luigi and Polterpup on an adventure throughout the mansion, the staff would show the guests where to go, and they would be using one of these poltergeist cars as they would drive around the mansion and suck up the ghosts. Egad would mention that this vehicle is called the Poltermobile, and it has a powerful vacuum that can capture multiple ghosts at once. The aim of the ride is to catch the most amount of ghosts and collect the money. It's like a laser raiders ride, basically, where you shoot the target while on a moving vehicle. There would be different screens showing many different actions, and you would have to follow through by sucking up the ghosts. The more ghosts you get, the higher score you get, too. It would also change scenery as well to many of the different mansions in Evershade Valley. As in that game, in Luigi's Mansion 2, there's 5 mansions, and the final battle with King Boo would take place on top of the Treacherous Mansion, which is the final location of that game. And King Boo would be furious with the guests and Luigi, showing many different attacks. And you would have to stun him, and you would have to, of course, try and suck him up. And you would see Luigi and Polterpup in the background telling you what to do. And just like that, King Boo is sucked up, along with all of the other sort of infamous ghosts that tried to attack, and they get turned back to normal, and are then let free. With King Boo now captured, you then return to Egad's lab, as he then congratulates you, saying that his new Poltermobile is a success, and that he'll be able to roll it out one day, and that he hopes that there won't be another ghostly invasion for the next 3,000 years, perhaps. And that marks the end for the Land for Luigi's Mansion, and I think it sounds quite cool, honestly. For all it is, it seems cool. I don't know if Nintendo would do this with Universal. They might. You never know. Maybe, perhaps. But it's just an idea, just for a bit of fun, to be honest. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. So take care, guys.